Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. We are so excited that you're joining us today. My name is Anya Chrysanthon and I'm a Chief Brand Officer at Anugo. So welcome. Today's webinar topic is demystifying the mystery shop process. So we're going to uncover what really goes on in the sales center when you're not there. And joining me today is the fabulous Leah Turner. Leah Turner is the sales coach and trainer with Melinda Brody Company. Leah has worked with thousands of salespeople throughout the country, training them on best practices on how to close more sales. She's also a licensed real estate agent herself. So she sold new construction. So she knows really what goes on both sides of the equation. And Leah has been in the industry for over 30 years. She started when she was 5 years old. Got a wealth of information to share with us today. So welcome to the webinar, Leah. And our chat lines are open. So as you guys are joining in, please be sure to say hello to Leah. Tell us where you're coming from today, and I'll be monitoring the chat throughout our conversation. We want to make it very informal. So as you have questions, please type them in the chat, and we'll be sure to address that as we go. So, Leah, welcome to the webinar. I am so excited to be joined by you today.
Thank you, Anya. It is always a pleasure to sit down with you and talk all things new home construction, and video mystery shopping, as you know, is one of my passions. So thank you for the opportunity to allow me to come on and kind of demystify that whole video mystery shopping process.
So as a former salesperson myself, I know how it feels when you think you're being shopped. I think every single salesperson on the planet dreads being shopped because, one, we cringe when we see ourselves on camera, so that playback. Two, you're starting to overthink everything, right? Did I say that? Did I say that? Did I tell the builder story? Did I cover that? And every single person coming through your model home, if you think there's a potential of being mystery shop, suddenly you think anybody who's interested is the shopper, right? So I wanted to kick things off by giving our listeners a little bit of a background on what is it that you do at Melinda Brody Company, and how do you do this process so that everyone understands exactly what we're talking about today.
Thank you, Anya, and great question. And I want to start by the theme of this webinar is do not fear the shop. Do not fear the shop. Unfortunately, video mystery shopping has gotten a bad rap in the past as a gotcha. And like you just said, oh my goodness, did I say this? Did I do this? What did my voice sound like, etc. Let's push that away for a moment and look at really what the meat of the video mystery shop is. For a salesperson, it's truly an opportunity to see yourself in action. I know when I coach through Melinda Brody Company, the first thing I say to my coachees is watch that shop not once, not twice, but 3 times, because I don't want to hear that your hair didn't look good or your butt looks big or whatever that is. But like, if you can get away from that and look at the meat, I look at video mystery shopping as a baseline. It's an opportunity for you to see what you did really, really well on the video shop. We always seem to forget that really, really well part. And also to look for areas of improvement. It's always interesting to me because it's usually the top producing new home salespeople. When I talk to them, they're like, bring it on. I love it. I'm so excited. It's video mystery shopping time again, because they look at it as a tool to master their craft. One of the things I train a lot on is do not use the video mystery shop as a gotcha. That's counterproductive. What we want to use it as is a training and a coaching tool. And like I say, it's not just where you forgot the builder story, but let's talk about what you did well. So it's a combination of all those things. And if we can get people to kind of shift away from that fear and look at it more as, hey, this is a growth opportunity for me to see what I look like when I'm in action. And I also tell people it's almost like taking your blood pressure. Some days you can take it at super high, the next day you can take it at super low, right? This is really just a snapshot. It's just a in real time moment, what happened on that day. One of the things that I find is, again, with people who have been shopped multiple times, when they have a bad shop, I kind of want to turn it around to, this is an opportunity. This is you seeing what happens on a day where maybe you had a lot on your mind, or you were running late, or you just weren't all there. So look, it's a snapshot in time. It's not a, you're the best, or you are horrible, or whatever. It's just like taking your blood pressure and being able to look at it and taking the good and taking a look at areas where you could perhaps improve your skills. So do not fear the shop.
Yes, if anything, I think we should embrace the shop, just like professional athletes watch themselves on video all the time to analyze every single detail of what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. Because let's face it, watching yourself on video gives you an unprecedented view and a perception that you cannot really gain outside of yourself, right? When you look at yourself in the mirror, you think, oh, this outfit looks great. I look great. I look professional. And then you see yourself on camera and suddenly something jumps out at you, or maybe you're noticing that you're doing something really weird with your hands. Maybe you're noticing that you're saying something really strange, right? Those filler words, we all have them. And unless you can see yourself outside of your own body, it's really, really difficult to catch that. So I am 100% all for watching yourself on video. And for somebody who has edited over 300 podcasts of myself, video podcasts on video, trust me, it's definitely painful in the beginning, just like when you first listen to your voicemail, right? Like, remember when we used to leave each other voicemails and you would hear your own voice and it's cringe because you're not used to it. Same thing on video, but as you get used to it and you watch yourself more and more, you actually really become okay with it, and the cringe factor goes away. But most importantly, you have an opportunity to improve those cringe-worthy moments over time.
So I want to just jump in and add, builders, when they invest in their salespeople enough to do video shops, they're investing in your future success. So I always say kudos to the builders, and most of our builders use video shops a couple of times a year. They get a baseline, we might do some training and coaching, and then they come back and do it again to see how you've improved. But if a builder is taking the time, the energy, and the money to video shop you and do something with those results, it's an investment in your future. So I really want everybody to think about it that way, in a positive light. And you're right, Anya, when I talk to people, I'll say, well, what was the first thing you noticed about the shop, or what did you do well? I always start with, what did you do well? Nobody tells me what they did well. Just like you just said, they go, I'm never wearing that outfit again, or I'm never going to be the first one walking up the steps with the prospect behind me, because the camera's not real flattering sometimes in video mystery shopping. But when we can get past that and really start looking at it and breaking it down into, let's talk, what did you do for qualifying? How did you overcome that objection? What is your closing technique? And when you can use it as a tool like that, there's not a better sales tool in the training kit, as far as I'm concerned, than starting with the video mystery shop.
I agree with you. So really, what we want you to take away from today's session is that video mystery shopping is not the gotcha, but it is an important tool in helping you improve. So take us through the process of what happens after you get the results of the mystery shop. Is it something where you sit down with the salesperson one-on-one? Is the sales manager involved? What is that training opportunity looks like post-shop?
Well, that's a great question, because I think what we found in the past, years ago, people were getting the video mystery shops, whether it was the sales manager or the division president, and they would look at them, but then it stopped. It never got off their desk. So back in the day, Melinda Brody and I were like, what can we do to really kind of create a training or coaching program around the video shop? So we came up with shop, coach, train. So once you get your video shop, that shop is then delivered to our in-house reviewers. So the shopper is not the one grading you. I'm not the one grading you. Ben Marks, who is our president, not the one grading you. We have people that all day long, all they do is grade you, right? So then the grade is put together, a scale of 0 to 100, and then the video shop and the score sheet is sent to the sales manager, right? So this is the opportunity where if the sales manager has time, what we find is oftentimes they don't have time, or sometimes they just want a third party person involved, but this is when the coaching, so we've done the shop, then here comes the coaching. And I love the coaching because this is when I get one-on-one with the people who have been video shopped, and we spend about an hour, hour and a half together, and we debrief. We talk about what worked, areas that they'd like to improve on, how would they have done things differently. And I think that's, to me, is when the light bulb goes off. As you said earlier, you don't know what you don't know until you see it. And somebody might go, you know, I notice I always hesitate before I ask for the close, or I'm not real good at overcoming the objections. So we kind of go through the shop and we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and then we come up with an action plan. Okay, great. Now you've seen the shop. What is your action plan for the next 30 days? Well, based on that shop, I really need to work on doing a better job of qualifying, or it really kind of smooth out my closing statements, or gosh, I can't believe I never even demoed the model. So then we come up with some action plans, and then the sales manager and I will hold them accountable. And so we'll call back in 30 days and kind of go, okay, what happened here? How have you improved, et cetera. So that's the coaching part. And then the third part, which I think is really instrumental to our builders out there, is the training part. And one of the things that we are able to do as Melinda Brody Company, when we video shop you, we've got a dashboard, so we can take all those results from your specific sales team and look and see, okay, these are the areas they all did really well on. These are the areas that might need to be improved upon. So the benefit to me is now I can personalize and customize a training program specific to your needs. For example, if everybody on your team is doing a fantastic job of discovery and qualifying, I'm not going to spend time on that. But if nobody really knows how to introduce and share the builder story, then that's going to be a big part of it. So that's the train part. And I love that because it gives me the opportunity as the coach and trainer to get to know the individuals one-on-one through looking at the shop. And by the time we come in there and do the training, it's a whole different feeling. We're all on the same page. We're over the initial shock of being video shop. So that's really kind of the three-part process that we put into place, because what we did find, and again, no fault to the sales managers, that's a hard job, right? So if you have 20 salespeople and all of a sudden you're bombarded with, here's 20 shop reviews, what are you going to do with it? But that the coaching and the training was definitely needed so that there was something positive that came out of the video shopping.
Love that. So you are getting a baseline, and then as I can imagine later on, if you're shopped again, you can really see a difference, and hopefully you've improved so much more. And where I would love to see myself in action was in the situations where we tend to be the most uncomfortable, such as asking for a sale, because your body language shifts when you're uncomfortable. Your voice starts to crack when you're uncomfortable. And if you feel uncomfortable, guess how you're going to make your customer feel? They're going to feel what you're feeling, and they're going to be very uncomfortable. So that is a great opportunity to see that happening in real time and say, oh, how can I change my voice? What can I do differently? How can I change my stance to feel more confident before I go in for that close? So before we get into the benchmark, as you mentioned, one of the best things about this whole thing is that you have been compiling this data from so many builders every single year. So we have results from 2021 as well as 2022. So we'll be talking about the results for different sections that you measure and how they have changed over time. But before we get into that, I would love to give our participants a little bit of information on the actual process of mystery shopping, because if you've never experienced that, maybe you're a sales manager and you're thinking about doing that, or you're a salesperson and you've never had that happen to you, obviously without giving away any of the secrets of where the camera is located, How is that set up? Kind of take us
Okay.
through that process of how is it set up? Is an OSC involved? Is an OSC shop? Because OSCs, online sales counselors, are such
Yes.
an instrumental part of today's shopping process.
Great question. And video shopping, just like so many other things in our industry, has evolved over the years based on technology. The company started in 1986 with Melinda Brody. Melinda Brody was the shopper. We didn't even call it video shopping back in 1986 because, hello, we didn't have that technology. So she was literally the one going out there doing the shops, coming back out and writing it. Obviously, as technology has evolved, the video shopping piece came into play. So what happens typically, basic scenario, is a sales manager will call Melinda Brody Company. Ben Marks is our president. We'll call Ben and say, hey, you know what? I want to shop my team. Wonderful. So what we do is then we spend time with that sales manager and find out, okay, let's say Anya is one of the people we're going to shop, and Anya's in Somerset Point. So the sales manager might say, you know, Anya's got some objections. She's right next to a freeway, you know, there's commercial property behind her. So they kind of give us a feel for what's going on in your sales office. So then we have a pool of video shoppers. They've all been trained, vetted, qualified, trained in not only on video shopping, but on video shopping for the building industry. So then we have a one-on-one conversation with them, and we'll say, okay, when you go visit Anya in Somerset Point, here are the objections we want you to bring up. We'll also find out, okay, this is a community where, you know, a lot of retirees are in, or whatever that is. So that kind of helps us focus on who we're going to select to be the shoppers, right? So the shoppers do their research. We provide them with data. They go into your model, and in the old days before the OSCs, they would just show up or call and make an appointment. But to your point, Anya, yes, so much more of this. The OSC is such a critical piece in this now. Usually we are instructed by the builder to start with the OSC versus a walk-in. So then when the shopper comes in, somewhere on their body, strategically hidden, we hope, and that technology has improved a lot too. It's not the handbag that's following you around like this anymore. It might be a lapel pendant or glasses or something like that. And in most cases, we don't get busted. They don't know it's happening. And when they do think it's happened, I'm like, well, if you knew it, why didn't you get 100? Anyway, a different story. So they come in and they will video shop the entire process. Then that shop is sent, like I said, to our reviewers who do a very black and white score. Did they use the person's name? Did they ask for the clothes? So it's very black and white. And I think that's another thing where the coaching piece really helps, because sometimes black and white, there's usually a gray, right? So you need to see a gray area. And so that's where the coaching comes in, and we kind of walk through it once they get the score, walk through it, talk about the good, what did you do, what would you change, etc. So the score comes out, there's a score sheet, there are about, I want to say 90 questions, comes up to a score of 100. So oftentimes, you know, people get a little shocked because their score might be 50, and we are all taught that, oh my God, 50, you failed. So, but you have to look at it from the bigger picture, because it's broken down into several different outline areas: meet, greet, register, builder story, model demonstration. I'll give you an example. One of the questions, Anya, on the video shopping score sheet is, did the sales associate use the prospect's name a minimum of 2 times? Okay, you and I might go, oh my gosh, of course they did. That's such an easy question. Of course they said Anya, Anya, Anya. No, in 99.9% of the cases, they don't use the name. So in addition to us really getting an idea of what's going on, we can really pinpoint, well, hey, you know, using name, number one, the prospects love to hear their name, but number two, you know what that does, Anya? You start to develop rapport, and using that person's name, guess what? They're going to start using your name. So there are a lot of subcategories under each of the main scoring categories that we kind of take a deep dive into, because sometimes it's just those little things that can make a big shift. Right? The developing rapport, the asking the questions, the overcoming the obstacles or objections. So, you know what, that's kind of where that coaching and training piece comes in. But it's very personalized and customized. And kudos to Ben Marks and Kim French, who have been there for a gajillion years, Kim French, for a long, long time. She's our scheduler, and she kind of is our operations manager, so to speak. So she might be the person that the builder speaks with, and she has a checklist. Do you want us to do this? Is it appropriate if a couple comes in there? If it's an over 55 community, obviously we're not going to send in a 23-year-old shopper, right? So we get all of those details to make the actual shop as real as possible.
Yeah. So yeah, I can totally relate to the name thing because, oh my goodness, so guilty of that. So many times the prospect will come in, will shake hands and say the names, and literally a second later, you don't remember what their name is. And then when it's time to ask for the sale,
that has been that way for years and years and years. And I say this, you know what? Have a clipboard. Hey, you know what, Anya, we're going to spend about an hour together. Is it okay if I take notes on some of the things that we talk about? Because we're going to be sharing some important conversations. Nobody's going to go, no, don't take notes, right? So on the top of your notes, write Anya. And then you have a kind of that mental, because everybody, I'm bad with names as well. But if you do it, and I always say, you know, in the first 10 minutes that they're there with your prospect, try to say the name at least 3 times, because then it will become much more natural. And then they're going to start saying their name, your name. We're not just prospect and salesperson, but we're developing a relationship, which is very, very important, as you know.
Absolutely. So why don't we jump into the benchmark report? So on our screen, I'm sharing the results from 2021 and 2022. So before we start talking about each area and get into detail about that, is there any background to that? Like how many builders approximately are included in this? What type of builder, size, etc.? If you can give us a little bit of a background.
Great question. Okay, the annual benchmark report is something that we pride ourselves on every year. It's been taking place, or we've been creating this report for at least 30 years. And what it is we take the results of all the video shops that we've completed in that year, and we compile all that data to come up with a national score. Now, what we're talking about today is the national score. With our clients, Anya, the people, let's say Joe Builder. So if Joe Builder has been shopped with us, Joe Builder will see the 2022 results nationally, but then he'll also see where he ranks against the national results, right? So that's the power of this in terms of with our clients. Typically, on average, we shop between 45 and 50 different builders. And to your point, it's production builders, it's custom builders, it's small builders, it's local builders, all the way up to the national. So we don't segregate that. It's all builders. And then from a standpoint of how many salespeople, that can vary. I think last year the number was around 1,200. So it's a very good sampling, and it's nationwide, from California to the Carolinas and all areas in between. So this data is good for a couple of reasons. Our builder clients can see where they rank nationally, right? But for us at Melinda Brody Company, Ben and I will take these results and start looking at it. For example, it's on your screen now. So, and looking at this for 2022, and if you'll see where I've highlighted builder story and closing. Well, first of all, closing is always pretty much down there at the bottom. And the thing to note here, Anya, is that when we send our shoppers in, they're ready, willing, and able buyers. So no credit problems, no house to sell. They're like, if you ask, we'll say yes, right? Wow. So, but we take these results and we're able to go, okay, so for next year, this was in 2022. So for 2023, a big part of our training focus was on builder story, closing, and follow-up. So we're able to kind of look and see what's happening. I think what's really interesting about this report too, Anya, in 2021, that's the year right after COVID. So we were real interested to see what was going to happen. And if you'll notice under model demonstration in 2021, 79%. And I think that a lot of that has to do with how we had to change how we did things during COVID. 2021, people were starting to come back into our sales offices, so we weren't quite back into that groove. So this to us is really like allows us to see trends what's happening and areas for improvement from a national level. Now, when I go in and train specific builder clients and I compare our national score to their score, that gives me another story. If their approach and introduction is 40% and the national average in 2022 was 97%, that pretty much tells me, guess what, we're going to need to focus on. So this tool is so valuable, not only just to our builder clients to see where they rank, but I think industry-wide, it allows us to see the areas. And again, as long as I've been doing this, closing has been pretty much down at the bottom. A trend I've been seeing is the builder story not being mentioned. You would be surprised how many times I watch video shops, and I watched a lot of them, trust me, and they don't even mention the builder's name, not even the builder's name, much less talk about what their USP, their unique selling proposition is, or what sets this builder apart from another builder in the marketplace. So that was for this past year and 2023, we've done a lot of training on how to introduce the builder story, and not the old, hey, have you ever heard of ABC Builder? Duh, they're in your sales office. I think they have heard of ABC Builder, but more getting a little deeper. Have you ever built a new home before? Tell me what you liked about that experience. Tell me what you didn't like about that experience. Well, great. If you don't mind, let me share a little bit about how we, ABC Builder, does things a little differently. So it helps us go, okay, this is what we need to focus on and make them comfortable to be able to discuss the builder story. Closing, obviously, that's always an issue. Follow-up, to me, I'm happy to see that follow-up went up from 2021 to 2022, but there's still an issue. Only 61% of the people out of all of the 1,200 people that we video shopped last year did follow-up within the first 24 hours. That is not good. So this is, Ben and I like to say, it's sort of our crystal ball. It helps us really know what those target areas are, the areas we need to focus on with training. And then again, comparing it with the builder scores versus the national scores allows us to even take a deeper dive into what's going on specifically with that builder. So great data and great information.
Yes, so let's talk a little bit more about this data. So for those of you who may be listening and not watching, as Leah mentioned, the follow-up is pretty much at, well, it's not the worst one at the bottom. Only 61% of all people followed up within the first 24 hours. Model home demonstration went up to a whopping 94% from previous year of 79%. Builder story is at 50%, which is pretty much the same as last year. And yep, closing is at 52%. So let's start with the builder story, because I think the marketing over the last few years is starting to shift from being builder-centric to more customer-centric. And I think that maybe this is due to some of this information that we're kind of being fed, that it's not about the builder, it's about the customer. So obviously you don't want to just spew the information at them and it's, hey, let me just tell you about my builder. So I think you did breach that subject a little bit already, but what is the good way, again, to introduce the builder story?
Again, you are 100% correct. And there's nothing that drives me crazier, like when I'm looking at shops, and like I said, it's black and white with the scoring. So they might get points for builder story, but the builder story might go something like this. Have you ever heard of the Melinda Brody Builders? We're a quality builder. We've got a great warranty. Okay, well, I kind of already expect that. So if that's your builder story, even though you might get a point for it, in my opinion, being a customer-centric world that we live in, that's not the appropriate way to do it. What's the benefit to the prospect? That's why I suggest asking, have you ever built a new home before? If they say yes, the first thing you want to know is, tell me about that experience. If they say, okay, the builder nickeled and dimed me to death, they weren't transparent, they were so late in delivery, that customer has now just delivered to me what I need to focus on when I'm telling the builder story. Oh, Anya, I'm so sorry you had that experience. Let me tell you how Melinda Brody Company Builders does it differently. We're transparent. Here's how we set our delivery dates. Here's how we do our pricing. Now I'm not just going, we're a quality builder since 1902. I'm really addressing what that person had a bad experience with before. If they say, oh my gosh, no, I've never built a new home before, I'm real nervous about it. Well, now you're talking to somebody who's very different from somebody who's gone through the experience, right? So you want to put them at ease. Boy, Anya, you're in for a treat. If you don't mind, I'm going to spend a couple of minutes, because I know you're going to probably be talking to multiple builders, want to spend a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about how Melinda Brody Company Builders does things a little bit differently. Then I will talk about some of the points that are not the quality builder, not that we have a warranty,
Right.
not that, right? You know,
Right.
so that's
Yeah,
the
don't
way,
leave the quality builder because
yeah, or family owned 1902. Nobody
right.
cares.
Nobody
It has
cares.
to be
Expected.
everything in your sales presentation. But back, excellent point, customer centric. Everything in your sales presentation, from your approach, your builder story, your model demo, home site demo, closing and follow up, has to be personalized and customized to that specific prospect. You're not just showing homes and going, here's the spare bedroom. You're going, like if I was showing Anya a home, Anya has a little baby, beautiful girl, Argentina, which I love that name. I would be going, would this room work for little Argentina, who's almost 3 years old? And how about this room for the twins? So much different than here are the two secondary bedrooms, right? So
Yes.
you got to take
It's all about
this.
listening, right? That's why you have 2 ears.
That's why that discovery piece at the beginning is so important, because they're now giving you the information to be, my theme this year was storyteller. New home
Right.
salespeople are storytellers, and you can't write the story for your prospect if you don't know anything about them. You've
Yes.
got to take that time and do the discovery, and then paint the picture. And here's Anya, and here's Argentina, and here are the twins, and there's the Christmas tree, whatever that is. But it has to be specific to the prospect, and it's not a cookie cutter thing. And I think that's where video shopping really allows you to roll up your sleeves and see if your salespeople are doing that. And if there are areas, hey, you know what, you did a great job about that, but what if we shifted it a little bit and you started to personalize it a little bit more to your prospects? And then the light bulb goes off and they're, oh my gosh, you know, that's so much. It's actually easier for the salesperson to create that story once they have that information. Otherwise, they're just, and I always say Julie McCoy, but Kimberly Mackey reminds me all the time that my audience might not know who Julie McCoy is, but she was the Love Boat tour director. Did you know her, Anya?
No, you lost me there.
Anyway, you don't want to be the tour director going, and here's the living room, and here's the dining room. We don't care. We want to know, you know what, Anya just mentioned to me, she was speaking Russian before we got on the call. Do you like to cook Russian food? How would this kitchen work for you? Now it's not just a kitchen, but it's Anya's kitchen. What do you like to make for your children? You've got to create that story and be the storyteller.
I love that. I think that's such a huge opportunity for training, because again, back to when I used to sell, it was much more builder centric, and it was builder story. You need to make sure you say this, this, this. And it was almost like they fed us scripts for that. But now I absolutely agree with you. You do not say that at all. You position it to what's in it for you. How do you position it to the buyer? Why should they care? It's not just builder story, your traditional builder story being spewed out. So great.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about follow-up, because follow-up is something that I personally feel pretty passionate about. You know, I know that it is a pain point for most salespeople. We dread follow-up. So with that 61% you mentioned, it's number of people who reached out within the first 24 hours. How long past the 24 hours do you track the follow-up, if you track that at all?
Well, two things. In addition to this benchmark study that we have here, which is just our video mystery shopping, we also have a department which Leah Katz Fellows works with benchmarks which is OSC tracking. So we've got a whole different report that goes into OSC, and I think that will touch more on that type of follow-up, which is CRM, every 2 weeks, this, that, the other. For the purposes of just the video shop, we just track within the first 24 hours if they followed up via an email, a text, or a phone call. And to me, I'm happy to see that it went up. I mean, my goodness, you can't get much further down, right? But I don't understand how hard it is to just send a follow-up. So I now, when I train, I talk about including follow-up in the presentation when you're closing. If you've suggested moving forward and they're not ready or need to think about it, then let them know. Would it be okay if I follow up with you in the next 24 hours, set another appointment for you to come back in? But I also say, hold something back. Like, you know, if you're a card player, hold that ace, keep that ace in the hole. Let's say, for example, Anya, you are looking at my community and your little Argentina wants to be a gymnast, let's say. Okay. And let's say I know that there's going to be a new YMCA opening up down the street that offers gymnastics. I would probably hold that back, not to be this sneaky or whatever, but if you ask what about gymnastics schools in the area, I might say, you know what, Anya, let me check on that and get back with you. So then when I'm following up, Anya, you had asked about such and such, wanted to share this information, because kind of like the boring builder story, you don't want boring follow-up. I can't stand,
Yes.
hello, thank you for visiting 213 Main Street. Call me if you have questions.
Are you still interested?
Right? Don't do any follow-up then, right? Your follow-up has to be unique, customer-centric, that's our word today, and memorable. So
Yes.
hold back on something, or if you've heard them say something, I don't know if I've shared this story ever with you before, but it's an old Melinda Brody story. And when she was doing the video shopping, or not video, but the shopping,
Mhm.
and her follow-up that she had a bird. Did I ever tell you this story? She had a bird.
No.
I know. She had a bird, like a parakeet, and the parakeet's name was Scooby. So when she was talking to the salesperson, and he did a great job of qualifying discovery, he found out about Scooby, right? So in his follow-up, and this is the old days, snail mail, whatever, he sent a follow-up letter to Melinda with a little bag of bird seed and said, I really hope you and Scooby decide to come back. We would love to have you as neighbors. Melinda told that story. I'm going to tell you that story's probably like 35 years old, but it meant so much to her because number one, he asked questions, he listened, he knew she had a bird, and actually made his follow-up around that. How much more meaningful is that versus thanks for stopping by, call me if you have questions?
Absolutely. This is why I always stress to salespeople is that number one thing, your follow-up has to be valuable to your prospect. If it's not valuable to them, before you ever pick up that phone, send that message, send that email, ask yourself, would this be valuable to them? If the answer is no, you might as well not follow up at all. And this is where, again, technology comes in so handy because you can see with technology what your prospects are doing. So after they visited you, did they get back on the website? Did they look at something so that you can have that meaningful conversation without being creepy about it, but not just talking random stuff, but you're actually leading them in the path that is interesting to them.
Yes, and personalizing and customizing. And this is why the discovery to me is still, I don't care how much technology and AI we get, that face-to-face human discovery, being curious, asking those questions. Tell me about you. Before, I find that oftentimes in watching video shops, the salespeople get very nervous in that first 5 minutes, and they feel like they have to jump into sales mode. Well, what brought you in here today? Let's take a look at the e-grid, 5 better, da, da, da. And they skip this part. And what we always say is take a breath, slow down. And I know most people are very eager to look at the model, which is true. But you know what? Just say something like, let's go into the kitchen. Let's have a water. It's a hot day out. And then that way they can they're in the kitchen and most of our floor plans are pretty open. They can kind of see that. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what brings you out here today. You've got to get that information, and I think, and use their name. And once you do that, that stress of, I got to be on sales mode calms down a little bit. Right. And then you're able to tell me a little bit about your family. What's your current situation? When are you moving? Where else have you looked? All those wonderful qualifying questions and discovery questions. You can't do a personalized presentation if you don't take the time up front to ask those questions, and it becomes very awkward. And then when you get to the part where you're supposed to close, oh my goodness, it's like it's cringeworthy, to use your word. It's cringy because they're like, first of all, they don't know your name, right? Because they
Yes,
didn't use it. So now they're like, do you want to move forward and buy this $8 million home? Well, you don't even
right.
freaking know my name. Of course I don't want to move forward. So it's that
Yes,
work, right? It's the awkwardest moment. It's like, do you kiss on the first date or what? Just watching that. I know I should ask for the sale, but I really don't have enough information. I don't know these people. I don't even remember their name. So how should I ask them to purchase my home? It's hysterical. But if you spend that time up front and develop rapport, relationship with them, and start closing at the very beginning, let them know at the very beginning, you know what, my purpose here today, Anya, is to find you a home. You've told me your time frame is 6 months. You've told me you're looking for a 3-2-1 story with a big backyard for your family. Is that correct? Yep. Well, that's my goal today. So now you've introduced the close up front. So when you come back around at the end and recap, Anya, today we started, our mission was to find this, 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 and this. I think we did it. What do you think, Anya? Ready to move forward? Then it's not this horrible, cringeworthy moment, you know? It's a natural, organic procession to the close.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I'm not surprised that it's 52% of people who ask for a close, actually down from 2021, which was 55%, which is shocking in a way that we're actually doing worse with that. But it is one thing that most salespeople struggle with, which is the point of the job, right? If you don't ask,
Exactly.
the answer is always no, right?
Right. And I always, why don't you ask? Well, they weren't ready. Well, no, it's not them. People just have this perception that closing is this event that happens at the end. They don't realize, like I said, it's a natural progression from the moment they walk into the door and asking your qualifying questions, doing your trial closing all throughout. And then it's just the natural next step. And I think one of the reasons closing went down in 2022, again, 2021, we were coming off COVID and the market was a little bit more of in a frenzy, if you'll remember, prices were going up, supply outweighed demand, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think they had to, try as hard with the closing. Then we get into 2022 and it's getting back to somewhat of a normal market where you do have to do this. So I always, every year, I hope that I would love to see that closing number go up to about at least 70. But I feel like if you do all the steps up front, the close comes natural and it's not this weirdo, awkward, cringeworthy, twiddle your thumbs. Well, do you want to buy? It's just much more of a natural flow.
Yeah. And do you remember off the top of your head, what's the highest that you've ever seen that number for any given year?
For closing?
Yes.
Nothing above 60%.
Wow. Okay. So
and that's
that is
35 years of looking at this report.
Wow. So that is obviously a huge area of opportunity where we need to train our people. And again, remember, these are the people who are willing, able,
and ready to buy.
And ready. Yes. And ready to buy.
No issues.
No excuse.
And you know what I thought a part of it is too, Anya, and it's like salespeople are people pleasers. I know I am. You are. So we are. It's almost kind of like a contradiction. We have to go in there and close, but we're people pleasers. We want everybody to like us. So there is a strategy to learn. I remember training one salesperson. He's like, I just can't ask for the close. It just is not in my DNA. And he was a huge people pleaser. And I'm like, well, what is in your DNA? He's like, I just want to find my clients the right home. I want to, to do what's best for them. So I'm like, all right, well, let's flip that. How can we use that as a closing statement? You know what, Anya? You said you wanted this type of home. I don't want to see you lose this. This sounds like it would be perfect for you and your family. I really don't want you to miss out on this opportunity. I feel like this is the home for you. When we kind of shifted how he did his close, all of a sudden he's a top producer in a week because he, from his heart, was going, oh my gosh, I found this home for Anya and her family. I don't want to see her lose it. And it wasn't this pushy. We have this thing in our head about the used car salesman and the pushy close.
Right.
But if we realize our role is nothing more than to find the perfect home for our clients. And when we do, we're not doing anybody any favors if we're not suggesting that they move forward. So that's sort of a hurdle that salespeople have to get over. And sometimes it's just a small shift. But again, that's why video shopping and coaching and training is so important, because the builder was about ready to write him off. We love this guy, but he can't close. Well, guess what? Yes, he can, but he has to do it in his way. And then he was a superstar. So again, benefit of watching a video shop and going, well, if we just tweak this just a little bit, all of a sudden it changed his whole thought process on closing.
I love that. So yes, I agree with you. I think most salespeople have some kind of a ick about it, but yeah, it is perceiving it in a different way. So now, Leah, before I let you go today, I know you have some juicy stories. Some of the unbelievable things that happen that you catch on camera. Every time I read your newsletter, I am like, whoa, I can't believe that happened. So of course, I cannot let you go before you share some of maybe a couple of recent stories or a couple of stories that you just cannot believe to this day. What happened? Tell us.
That's so funny that you say that, because sometimes, and I'm glad you read the newsletter. Thank you. Whenever I run into people that read the newsletter, they'll go, come on, Leah, you made that up. There's no way that happened. And Ben and I go, we couldn't make this. I'm not that creative to make this stuff up. So Melinda wrote a book a couple of years ago called Behind the Scenes of 25,000 Video Shops. And that was probably 10,000 video shops ago. So if you haven't read that book, it's a great training manual for people in sales, but it shares some funny stories. But I've got a couple doozies. There's always the one I like to tell about the girl that's painting her fingernails and eating a tuna fish sandwich in the sales office, and the prospects come in and she's just, between bites and painting her nails. The models are that way. Just go over there. Unfortunately,
No.
right? I've seen one guy who literally, the prospect or the shopper came in and couldn't find the salesperson and started looking around the model, and he was like laying in the bed in the master bedroom taking a nap.
Wow.
Right? And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He's like, oh my God, I got so wasted last night. I'm still hungover. I don't even know. I shouldn't have driven myself to work today.
Oh my God.
Right?
Was he
And
fired on the spot?
I don't know. I would imagine that he found another career opportunity. Let's just put it that way. My favorite of all times, though, is it was so funny. It was when Melinda was still alive, and I would watch these video shops, and this one was so good. I put it on pause and I called Melinda, and I'm like, girlfriend, we're zooming this one. Get a glass of wine, get the popcorn. This is a doozy. The gentleman was showing sights with the prospect, and literally, Anya, he pulls out a pack of cigarettes. He smokes not one, not two, but 3 cigarettes in about a 10-minute time frame as he's showing the home or the property, and then like throws it into the construction site. Did not ask one time, hey, is this bothering you? So when I had to do his shop, his coaching, I was like, hey, would you have changed anything about how you did that? And he's like, no, not at all. And I'm like, okay, so is it normal for you to smoke cigs when you're demonstrating the home site? He's like, well, she looked like she wouldn't mind. I go, okay, in this day and age, dude, not happening. So eventually he came around and said, you know what, this is interesting when you start digging deeper. And he's like, I had a really stressful day. My wife was going in for some specific tests, and I was just very anxious. Back to the point of sometimes it's really good for a top producer to have a bad day on their video shop, because you see what happens under stress. But I've had people call Uber Eats, hey, go and look at the model, I'm waiting on my breakfast. I mean, we've seen I've had people that have worn outfits that look like they either didn't come home from last night at the disco or were getting ready to go to the club afterwards. And we can't make it up. I mean,
I would love this job. I think, it would be so much fun to go in and pretend. Although I'm the worst liar in the world, I feel like I would just be like, hi, where are you from? I'm not mystery shopping.
I'm a video shopper. I'm here to shop you. I'm sorry.
But
I want to say,
such fun job.
as much as we've seen some really crazy things, I've seen some absolutely beautiful video shops. And I had one client for a builder that we shopped for like 7 years, and her first score was a 46, and she was new to the industry. So I was, pep talk, let's put a plan together. And she said, my goal is to make 100. And I'm like, you go, girl. And 1 year later, I looked at her shop. She had gone from like a 43, 44 to 100. And I said, tell me, what did you do? How did you do that? She said, I followed the score sheet, because we have the score sheet. And she said, I treated everybody that walked into my office as if they were a video shopper. And I'm like,
Yes.
girlfriend, you could be the poster girl for Melinda Brody Company, because it works. It works. And
I think that is the biggest takeaway, you guys, from today. If you're in sales, treat every single prospect as if you're being video shopped. Be on your A game so that there's no surprises, there's no doubt, and I'm sure you'll see your closing rate skyrocket.
You absolutely will.
Yes. So, Leah, thank you so very much for being on today, for sharing everything with us. It's been such a pleasure. And, I think everybody can learn so much from you. So if you guys need any video shopping done, you know who to call. So make sure to reach out to Leah and Melinda Brody and Company, and they will take great care of you. And again, the best part is that it's not a gotcha. It is a training program, coaching program that's designed to get you to where you need to be from 40 to 100%. So hope everyone enjoy the rest of your day and go get them, rock stars. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anya.
We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.